A new raccoon has been born, and tonight we are going to review it. Of course, I'm talking about a knife that Vosteed so generously and confidently sent to me for review. Why confidently will become obvious to you in a few minutes, because this and the new blades will be both tested for hardness right in front of your eyes. I start all my hardness tests with verification of the calibration of my Rockwell tester. And for that, I'm using this serialized, independently certified calibration block. It's rated to be at exactly 62 HRC. My device always runs just a hair higher, so I should be getting somewhere between 62.1 and 62.2 HRC. And as predicted, 62.2 HRC. Technically, by the guiding standard, I don't have to reduce the results by 0.2 because it's well within the allowable repeatability error. But if you would like to subtract 0.2 HRC from the consequent results, be my guest. The numbers will be quoted as they are, and then for each of the blades I will give you the average, and the first poke comes out at 60.0 HRC. So this is the uncoated blade from the parallel that I've had in my possession for a while now, for at least a year or so. And the second poke at 60.2 HRC. So as you can see, pretty consistent repeatability here. We're getting good results. I'm poking it the third time. The key to it is to have enough spacing between the spot where I'm poking it and any edges, protrusions, or other pokes. That's the rule. And that's the challenge because the blade is small. And yet I get three good measurements, 60.0 HRC, again for an average of 60.0 HRC. I don't know if you noticed, but now I'm measuring the coated blade from Raccoon TiSlim. I am not sure what kind of coating they use. They did not advertise it. I suspect PVD coating, but it could be DLC. I'll later examine it under the microscope and hope some of the coating experts will chime in. 59.5 HRC on the first poke, which is very close to the uncoated blade, indicating a solid planning in their heat treatment and coating processes at whoever is an original manufacturer for this knife. 59 HRC on the second poke is a surprise. I usually don't see such a gap between two pokes. And looking at the blade, I realize I poked it a little too close to the bearing recess. So I'm going to redo, and this result will get thrown out. Let's talk about 154 cm steel. But first, the second legible poke result is 60.0 HRC. This steel was actually brought into the knife world to sort of supersede 440C steel, because at the same hardness it will have a lot higher edge retention than 440. 59.4 on the third poke, and 59.6 is the average. So because the difference between the two blades is minimal, I can declare that whoever did the heat treat and then the coating knew what they were doing. But how about the sharpening? I always check the tip first because that's an indication of professionalism, and this tip is pretty well sharpened and not overstropped. You can see that the radius of the tip is minimal, and convexity that results from stropping is not overly overwhelming throughout the length of the blade. I'd like to show you the apex straight on. That's why I'm rotating the blade here toward the viewer, getting my microscope adjusted. And here you go, minimal radius on the apex, and that's in the belly area of the blade. Let's check it out closer to the sharpening choil, mid blade, and looks like we got pretty consistent angle. The apex looks even better in this area. That means they might have gone a little harder on stropping toward the tip. And now what I call Neves piece, because of how much attention Jared Neves pays to this area. That's the plunge line where it meets the edge or secondary bevel. And because it widens in this area, that means the plunge line is encroaching on the edge, which is not the case with the opposite side of the blade where the plunge line is spaced correctly. And here's the coating on the handle, and next I'll show the coating on the blade, hoping that the resident coating experts could advise me on what kind of coating they think that is. Because of the optimal hardness and really good sharpening, this should be a really good slicer. Let's test this theory. I'm using my lovely wife's strand of hair to test whether or not this blade will whittle it. And as you can see, it's not under any tension. It just suspended in front of the microscope lens. Let's see. I think we got it whittled. This would be one of the very few knives that can do it straight out the box. Next challenge is this very inexpensive paper towel suspended in the air, no tension on it. Let's see if it will slice through it. It got in. Hold on. Let me see if I can do a little better job. Let's try it in this direction. So we'll give this 5 out of 10. 10 out of 10 on the whittling hair. And next is the paper towel tube test. I'm gonna adjust the camera here. Here it is. It's not attached to the bench surface. So these are gnarly because it's fibrous. It has weird texture. It has spiral glue lines here. So for a blade to cut through it, it takes a little bit of doing and would be evidence of good sliciness of this knife. So let's try it. Clean cut. And we continue. I'm going to wipe off. Let's see. At this point, I have a question for you, my viewers. If you are not a subscriber to my channel, may I ask you why not? Please join me in expressing appreciation for the folks who support my channel as monthly members, as well as those who donate via the gift button at the bottom of the screen. Their generosity is both humbling and inspiring. Now that we're satisfied with the cutting performance, let's get into some measurements. The knife I'm using in the unboxing is Vosteed Parallel, an ultra slim knife made out of the same materials as the newcomer, 154 cm blade and titanium handles. I often carry this knife as a back pocket backup to my front pocket knife because it's so slim and because of the wire pocket clip that will not damage a seat in my car or other places that I plant my butt on. Now let's talk about the design features of this knife. The titanium scales are coated a very dark bronze, almost chocolatey color, and there is no indication what kind of coating this is. I suspect it to be DLC or maybe PVD. No way to tell, nothing on the box. Not surprisingly, from the side it looks identical to other Raccoons as far as its outline. Identical. And I'm rolling the Parallel into the same review because it has a similar lock and it's ultra slim. The beefiest Raccoon on the table is the one with a Vancor lock. It's thicker than any other style lock Raccoon because I think the Vancor lock requires a certain spacing between the scale and the frame, and between that and the fact that it has titanium scales, it's quite heavy. This is the button-operated top liner lock, or what I call bottle. And these two, while classified as mid-size knives, definitely feel and perform like a full-size knife. So let's look at them from the spine direction, and the differences will become obvious to you momentarily. Now I'm going to measure the thickness just to be thorough. And I'm going to measure it first in inches and then in metric units, millimeters. 220 thousandths of an inch on the Parallel. TiSlim here is 325 thousandths of an inch. Raccoon Bottle is 488 thousandths of an inch thick, and the thickest one is at 5 113 thousandths of an inch. Let's do the metric rundown really quick. We got, going backwards, 13.5 millimeters, 12.4 millimeters, 8.2 millimeters, and 7.1 millimeter. This knife has an interesting mix of hardware. T8 on the pivot, the pocket clip, and the rear screw on this side, and T6 is in the middle and the back of this side, as well as on the clip side. There's one lonely T6 screw as well. The driver I'm using here is Hoto multi-bit set. I highly recommend it. It's very inexpensive, and the bits are made out of S2 tool steel and hardened to around 60 to 62 HRC. I checked. The links to this and other tools I use in maintaining and sharpening my knives are in the description for the video. And using these links also helps support my channel, but you don't have to use them. Check them out anyway on Amazon, and let me know if you can recommend some better options. This knife is basically the same thickness as Benchmade Narrows, but they're using traditional Omega spring crossbar lock on the Raccoon TiSlim, as opposed to Narrows using a torsion spring lock that costs apparently 3 times as much by itself as this knife as a whole. This segment was filmed before I tested the blade for hardness, and that's why I'm just removing the blade. But time permitting, let's take a look on the inside and figure out how did designers at Vosteed manage to use a traditional crossbar lock yet keep it that slim. While I'm taking the handle apart, let's talk about Vosteed and how and where they make their knives. The founder of Vosteed used to work for Kaiser and then split off on his own. Therefore, I think the Raccoon series is actually made by Kaiser. That is the OEM. I have some clues to that point. Look at the milling inside the handle. That's what makes it so light. We'll weigh it in a second here. Nice deep milling. Look at how complex the pocket for the Omega springs is. And here's the secret. They milled the liner as well to create enough recess space to accommodate a traditional Omega spring. Now, I am not a believer in the fact that Omega springs break a lot. I never broke one, but some of my viewers indicate otherwise. Oh, by the way, Vosteed provides a set of spare Omega springs with the knife. So here we have a clutch mechanism, or at least Kaiser calls this clutch, where you have different settings for the spring tension, which is what I'm trying to adjust here. And it's always tricky on any knife. But, you know, using combination of pincers and your thumbs, you should be able to manage. I could leave the opposite side spring at the factory setting, but that would mess with my OCD. So I'm going to remove the entire liner slash crossbar lock combination out of the handle. And unlike it's usually the case with the knives made on the bench, this unit did not come apart when I pulled it out of the handle. So now adjusting the opposite side, and you need some level of dexterity to do that, but you know, if you first don't succeed, try and try again, as Mickey Mouse said. So eventually I get the spring where I want it to go, right there. Now it's at the highest tension. Now, in my experience, that does not really affect detent by much, but it gives you a more positive sort of engagement sensation when you operate that lock. Very little difference as far as detent goes. So to reassemble, I first attach the locking block to the show side of the handle. Make sure that the stop pin is still there. And next step is to reinsert the pins that align the back spacer to the handle. They're tiny, so again, a level of dexterity is required. This is a very slim knife, and therefore all the hardware is on the shorter side. Okay, that drops right in, nicely positioned. All I have to do now is pop the cover back on, and we'll get to the blade in a second. Don't yell at the screen. I've developed this method over disassembling and reassembling hundreds of knives by now. And I do have hundreds of crossbar lock knives because this was, is, and probably will remain my favorite lock overall, as far as balance of reliability, performance, and overall convenience, ambidextrity of it. There is no better. I don't care what the fashion du jour is, and please don't get mad at me for stating my opinion, because if you go through a mental checklist of something like top liner locks, compression locks, and any other kind of locks, you will find that all of them lack at least one of these features. They will either be less secure, less ambidextrous, less something. Of course, if you still want to yell at me, please do so in the comments. Just remember, this channel is a dictatorship. Please watch the I got a little bit of marking on the coating here. Let's see if I can wipe it off. I typically use naphtha, also known as lighter fluid, to clean coated blades. And then if you're going to use it with food, you still have to wash it with some kind of dish soap to keep it food safe. And clearly everything wiped off. Some of the Cerakotes out there will not hold up even to this minimal cutting. So draw your own conclusions. A quick look at operation. A thumb, reverse flick, all good. The center of balance for this knife is right behind the crossbar lock. Right there. Here you go. And the grips are very comfortable in every position, more comfortable than you would imagine for a slim knife. Good reach, perfect ergonomics, everything that Raccoon is famous for. Overall length is 7 9/16 of an inch, or 192 millimeters. The blade length from the handle to the tip is, is 3 3/16 or 82 millimeters. The cutting edge length measured properly is, is exactly 3 inches or 77 millimeters. The weight is 79.1 gram compared to a standard Raccoon is, you know, what is it, 8 grams less? 79.87. All right, in grams, it weighs 79.2 grams, which is 8 grams, only 8 grams lighter than the standard Raccoon. And let's do it in ounces. This one is 3.1 ounces, and this guy is 2.8 ounces. Let's compare it to some other popular EDC knives in budget to mid price category. Let's compare it to some popular EDC knives in this mid price category. This is Spyderco Tenacious, also made in the People's Republic of China. Here's Kaiser Drop Bear, a version of it. Very similar, you know, somewhere in the same vicinity. Here we go, Vosteed's own Psyop, extremely popular knife. And here's the Porcupine, which is just a little smaller. So here they are. Let's see if I can fit them in the shot. So this Tenacious is probably a very close comparison because of its titanium handles, but the blade on the Tenacious is 8CR 13MOV, which is a step down from 154 cm. And, you know, all in all, I think it's a good time to be a EDC knife collector because we have all these wonderful choices at a very reasonable price. I think this is the least expensive choice, but it has that button-operated top liner lock that everybody loves. And of course there's a Raccoon right here with the same very lock.